I'd like to call the Port of Commission work session to order. Today is Wednesday, May 12th. Time is 12:03. First item is public comment, which none were heard. And the next item, and the only item for today's work session, is General Manager contract negotiations. So I just wanted to start off with the goal of this meeting is to discuss any type of merit wage increase and contract adjustment for Paula Miranda. And we're not to speak of the specifics of our executive session that we had on May 3rd, but discuss the outcome of her appraisal and entertain conversations regarding where next steps and where to go with wage adjustment. So I think I'd like to open that up to the commission for ideas and discussion. And maybe I'll just start in order in which I see you. Jeff, you have any initial ideas or thoughts for this?
Yeah, what would you suggest we start off first, just with general? I'm trying to think, how do we? Well, let me collect my thoughts. Can you come back to me?
Sure thing. Kelly, you're the next on the screen.
Oh, I'm live. Okay, so actually, I've never been through this process, so this is all new to me. But
well, hold it there then. Maybe since you're new, and I'm relatively new in this seat, let's go to Walter, since he's been through this quite a bit, and I only sat through this once and not in this seat. So, Walter.
I thought the evaluation went well. I think we all were basically in agreement around what needs to be done, what needs to be addressed. I think we're all on the same page, seeing what our priorities were for the evaluation. I look forward to those being put as part of our goal setting session coming up in the wintertime. And I think it's something that we need to do. We do it every year. And I think that it's a good thing for us all to have that time to talk and come up with ideas on how better to address the needs and issues of the board.
Okay, and as another thing for everyone to think about and touch on, where the outcome of this meeting is to make a recommendation that we'll then see in our next monthly meeting for any type of wage adjustment or contract adjustment. So, the goal in which we need to think about and start talking about is where do we go with that, and what is the proper increase compared to the rest of staff at the port increases per year, and where it affects our budget and those sorts of things. So Jeff.
So I've wrestled with this a little bit for a few different reasons. I believe that first, I'll just start off. I've got a list of 5 reasons why I think we absolutely need to give Paula more than a nominal increase. And I'll just list those 5 reasons out. 1, she's got years of experience. 2, excellent job performance and dedication. 3, the salary range for Northwest Port GMs is higher than many may realize. 4, there are a lot of important projects and decisions coming up in the next several years. And 5th, maybe the most important to all of us in the port and the stakeholders in the community, is that stability, good leadership, and good decision making are worth a whole lot to the port. And if I could add a 6th just off the top of my head, just that I would speak as one commissioner that I would think we would want to commit to Paula show her we appreciate her work and that we hope to continue the good trajectory that we've been on the past 2 years well into the future. And so those are the 6 reasons why I believe a more than nominal increase is in order. And exactly arriving at that, it's hard to put an exact number on it. I do have a suggestion, but before I, as maybe a suggestion is food for thought or to see what people think about it. But before I go to that, would anybody else like to speak in general or set the stage or for anything else?
I appreciate and agree with your points. Kelly, were you moving for your mic or no? You're on mute.
No, I'm taking it all in, and I am in agreement with Jeff on all 6 of his target answers. So I'm in agreement.
Walter, do you have any other thoughts on that?
What was the increase given to the rest of the employees on for the port for this year?
This year, well, we have a target rate of 5%, but it's based on how based on performance.
Okay. I'm just going to reiterate. I've got the minutes from our last review, and it goes the same. I think the port needs to make sure that we're looking at bringing in new revenue sources. That's not from the minutes, but that's my thought. It's big jumped, I'm in agreement that we should look at an increase, whether it's above what we give the other employees. I'm up for talks about that, but I think we just need to recognize public perception, looking at how many millions of dollars of projects we have going ahead. But we do need to keep good management. I'm not saying that we don't, but we have not brought in a large new revenue source for quite a while. And I think that needs to be our number 1 priority. And we need to address those issues around the port. And perception is everything. And we are looking at an admin building also. And I think the perception needs to be considered as far as the public. So that's my take on it. Thanks.
Okay, and before we get to Jeff's recommendation or thought on that, Paula, do you have any words? How did you feel your annual appraisal went, and how do you feel about the last year? You're on mute.
Sorry, I thought
We all fall for it once in a while.
I put it on and off so many times I forgot. First of all, I would like to thank you all for the comments I received through the appraisal, and specifically thank you, Jeff and Kelly, for your latest comments. I feel pretty good about how we are doing here at the port. In the past couple of years, obviously, we had to deal with a lot of different situations with COVID last year, which made it a little bit harder to bring in some new source of revenues. However, we did, throughout my couple of years here, found ways to save ourselves money, which made up to an extent for the fact that we didn't bring anything new. And I think when we're talking about new, we're talking about, I'm sure it's a major project that you're looking for, such as something over at the terminal. We are working with some folks right now, and I look forward to hopefully bring something new. But overall, I think the performance of the port in the past year in particular, considering COVID and everything else, we actually outperformed most ports here in Oregon. We did quite well. I heard a lot of folks had lost a lot of money and they had to apply for way more help funds than we did. And unfortunately, some of the funds available on the COVID side was more if you had losses, and we didn't have that much losses, quite frankly. It was a little bit on the recreational side in the beginning, but overall, we did so well that we barely had to ask for any money. So again, I look forward for next year. I think there are a lot of opportunities coming up for us. I know there are a lot of projects and some which we won't be making money, but I think it's necessary in order for us to continue the proper operations of the port. I guess at this point, it's up to you how you see, communications, I believe, has been really good for the port. I hear lots of good comments. In general, what I hear from most people is that we, you know, the the way the community look at the port now, it's much different than it was in the past. And again, I gotta say, it's not just me as a general manager, but it's a team effort. We work real well with the management we have right now, and I think we have a good resource here within the port to make things do even better in the future. So
Okay, thank you, Paula. Jeff.
So I understand what you're saying, Walter, and about the perception. I think about the perception and what stakeholders and community members want. I believe they would want. My impression is they want a well-functioning port, and that is of tremendous value. The difference between having a general manager who is experienced, who deals with all the different entities that a general manager has to deal with. There's so many different groups, from the people that work at the port to the stakeholders, all the different stakeholder groups, city, county, state, leaseholders. It's just Paula does such a great job of all of it. The difference between having somebody, and I will say this, Paula in the last 2 years, I think, has increased the financial well-being of the port, along with staff, greatly. And to put a value on having somebody who leads the port in such an endeavor, as opposed to having a general manager who does not, is, you could try to put a money value on it. It would be difficult, but it could be huge. It could be a massive. And so I believe that we want to show Paula that we would like for her to remain here. Now, the difficulty that we may face is, and it's hard to get a handle on what other ports are paying. We don't have the greatest information or the latest, but there is a sense that the range is higher than many would think when you start looking. It's a high range, and so that's to put it bluntly, Paula has options. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but somebody who's leading a port, who's doing really well, you better believe that some other port who's having major problems is going to look around and recruit her. And so when that time comes, because if it hadn't come, it will. We want Paula to say, no, we've got a port and a commission that's dedicated, and I have way more here collectively than I could have somewhere else. And so I think it's important for the community, for the stakeholders in the community, that we continue this good trajectory that we've been on. So I think a more than nominal, even if we went more than nominal, we still may not be in the ballpark of some of some similar sized ports, although it's hard to get a exact grasp on that. I'm not saying we need to catch up overnight or that we could even catch up. We can't catch up to some of the bigger ones. We just can't. We just can't do it. So I know I've rambled, but I think this is kind of an important decision. And so I will say that to be competitive, we want to be competitive, but also understand, I agree with Walter, that we want to be measured and prudent, recognizing we don't have to match the larger ones. But if I look at where we're at and the inflation rate that came out today, there was a big, and I don't know if you've seen it today, but the official number jumped to its highest, and by some measures, a decade and a half, by some measures, a few decades. That also puts things into perspective. And so based on that, I would suggest that we have about a 9% increase to go to $153,600. And that would be for the course of 2 years, including last year's increase. That would be a healthy increase of 20% over for the 2 years compared to 2 years ago. And we still may not be, it may sound like a lot, but I still don't think we're quite up with some similar sized ports, but it shows a commitment from the commission that we want to go more in a competitive range, even if we can't compete one for one with some ports. And then we can see if we can look at in future years what the results continue to be with the port, and maybe get a salary survey and have and get on the other side of COVID and kind of everybody see where different ports are at, where the Port of Newport's at, and kind of reevaluate in the future. And so that's my suggestion: a 9% increase to 153,600 for now. And that would be the 9% for this year, and for the total 2 years, a 20% total.
Thanks, Jeff. Well thought out comments as usual. Appreciate that. I agree. Retention is paramount for us, and to be able to complete projects and show progress to our constituents, it's really important. I think looking at staff salaries in the future is a good thing to continue to do for Paula, to make sure we're keeping up with inflation across the board. That's not really a topic for this meeting. I just wanted to throw that out there. It's a thought that came across my head, across my brain. But I agree with you and support that. And I'd like to ask Kelly her thoughts on that, and then Walter.
Thanks, Jim. So I just wanted to say, I think that it's all, we've done this evaluation, and I know this is live with the public, and so I think that the public also needs to know why we support a increase in salary for Paula, because she is all those things that Jeff was talking about, her leadership quality, she's a professional in all that she does. She saves support money, and her and her team work hard to better this port. But I also think that it's important for that people know that she is not just here serving in her position, she's also serving the community. And she's doing that by being a member of the Vision 2040 committee, by being part of the Yaquina Bay Economic Foundation, by being a part of the Oregon Public Port. And I'm just reading what she had put on the evaluation that she's a part of. But I think it's important the community knows that she's worth her value and the increase. And she's also part of a meeting with Governor's Regional Solution Team, and she's part of the Yaquina Bay Estuary Management Planning Steering Committee. So her focus is to do well and to be involved, and not just to lead the port, but to be involved in the community and the port. And there's a value in that. A lot of people do a good job when in jobs, But she's getting outside of just her job and going farther and being a part. And so I just think the community needs to know that Paula gives above and beyond just the job she does. So anyway, and I am for the increase completely.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Walter?
Yeah, just so my comments weren't misconstrued, I said I supported an increase. It was just the amount I wanted to talk about. Last year, I brought up offering Paula a contract, if that's something she's willing to discuss at the next meeting. I'd like to do that, but I would like to discuss the number, the amount of increase. Whether we do that here at the next meeting, but I was looking more towards 7%. Last year was a 10%, and when we hired Paula, we hired her at the highest amount that we advertised the job for. I know that was you pay what you have to, and I'm not saying we shouldn't keep increasing what we're paying Paula commensurate with her job and her performances. That's just my take on it. If she's willing to talk about a contract for 3 years with increases there, and maybe we can get to a more competitive salary that way, I'd rather do that and then look at larger increases every year and working towards a goal in smaller steps.
Paula?
Yeah, I was never against setting up a contract. What I did mention last time when that was brought up is that the current contract that I have, it already established an auto renew every year. It's just makes it for an easier exit for either the board or myself. And as if the commissioners want to look into a longer term contract, I'm certainly open for that. And if we want to already try to establish what that increase would be through those with, with some targets, I'm okay with that. As what I look at, first of all, what I initially accept as a salary 2 years ago, I gotta say, I look at the port budget and I look at what the port was doing at the time, and the max amount that they could pay a general manager at the time, and I was willing to step in at that salary because I figure I can hopefully change things at the port that would allow for a better salary later. And that's what, because I figure that as we're working towards a target of bettering the port, that would better my opportunities for that as well. With that said, at the salary I came here, literally from the port I came from in a lower position, I was actually at my take home money, it was about the same. Because over there, they did have a match of 6% on my PERS. So I lost 6% PERS match that I don't have here. So at the end, if you look at it, my salary was maybe I got an increase of less than $2,000 from moving from where I was living, coming all the way to Newport, and taking way more responsibility. So at the time I was willing to do that. So that's on me but at one point, my goal, and I'm just going to be straight honest, my goal is that we keep my salary at least on the same level as the similar ports that we have here on the coast. And when I compare that to, what other similar ports would be Coos Bay and Astoria, where Coos Bay has cargo, I get it that their salary is much higher, but with Astoria, we are very similar in assets, revenues, and so on, very similar type operations, and at this point, as you know, their salary is much higher. So at one point, I think I would like to stay at that level if all possible. And I understand there are some expectations here. And again, I'm willing to work with you, willing to work on a contract that maybe defines a longer term, and maybe the salaries moving forward. So
Okay, Jeff.
Um, I like the contract the way it is. As far as I really had trouble with a number. I found some information online. It's not exactly recent, but in Washington, you compare port CEOs with the executive branch of the government, including the governor, and there's 5 port CEOs that make more than the governor. Of the port executive branch, and we're talking treasurer, other commissioner, secretary of state, there's 10 CEOs that make more than all the executive branch employees, except for the governor and attorney general. And the reason for that is the ports, they're a public entity, but they're also a competitive business. And the person you have at the helm can make or break you to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so when you're looking at an increase and you're looking at, do we give an extra $2,000 or not? It pays for itself 100 times over if you have the right person. And I've really had a hard time with this because we don't have the comparables. I mean, Coos Bay, it's like we can't compete with that, and I'm not sure why theirs is like that. Astoria, we raised last year to meet Astoria, and looking online, I can't find anything public. They don't seem to have as much public information as we do. But I don't know. There was some conflicting information, and I don't have anything verified from Astoria. I would really like that because I think Astoria probably is the most comparable port in terms of revenues and that type of thing. I think we might have passed them. I'm not sure. So I do find it very difficult because I want to be competitive enough to where Paula wants to stay, because if things go south, we could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in just efficiencies in business because she's done so well. So I as a commission, I think it would behoove us acting on behalf of the people of the Port District, act in their best interest to keep Paula and to keep her to where she wants to stay here. And so, but I have difficulty because I also can't say, okay, well, we got to go match Coos Bay, or we got to match Hood River, or we got to match whoever. Well, we can't exactly do that either. But if what I would say, just on I can't speak on behalf of the whole commission, but just I would ask Paula to kind of patience, I guess, that we can't overnight just match this port or that port, but each of the last two, look at the last increase and then whatever we decide upon here as showing that we're going in the direction of more than nominal and just trying to be measured. So I think that I really wouldn't want to go less than 9. In one way, I kind of want to go higher because to try to make sure we're competitive, but another way, I want to be measured and think we don't have to go there overnight. So I know I've talked a lot this meeting, but I think this is important for our future because we've got stability for the first time in a while, and we've got a great trajectory for the first time in a while, and a synergy. And I'd like to see that continue as long as we can.
Thank you, Jeff. Kelly?
So I think I just want to say, we've seen some of those numbers that Paul has put out, and from being new on the committee or the commission, I know that it's hard to have a whole lot of input, but I want to make sure I'm also heard with that. I do think that it's important to, focus on that upward goal to get Paula there sooner than later. So I think as these other ports are making much more than what Paula's making, I think it should be our goal to get her there quickly. And anyway, but reasonably and financially, and I know I don't have all the logistics that Jeff has, but I do think that we need to continue to see the value. A couple $1,000 when you're running a business, a couple $1,000 here or there doesn't seem like much, because you can save here and lose here. I mean, it's not a couple, but a couple $1,000 more salary makes a big difference. And I think that I was hoping that we'd go just even a little bit more, because she is at such a low amount compared to the others. And so I was hoping more for at least, some between 10 and 12 $1,000 more. And so, but with that said, like I said, I'm just coming into this, but I know from running a business, sometimes that increase changes the way the performance is by the leader. So if we run fishing boats, and to have a good captain at the helm actually makes us way more money than we ever would going through different captains that don't have the heart and the leadership and the experience that Paula does. So I know we have to do it wisely, but I still think it should be a little bit more. So that's just where I'm coming from. Thank you. Yeah.
Good points, Kelly. Jeff.
I'm open to more. I had a hard time coming at a number because I had kind of competing thoughts. I wish Gil were here so we could have, get all five of us. I'm open to more.
Well, we don't need to create that motion here. We can make it at the meeting, if I'm correct. I believe I am. So we don't have to have that solid number here, so we can be able to include him in that. But this is a good conversation to be having. I'm open to more as well. Fiscally responsible, keeping a GM is fiscally responsible. So that's very important. It would be nice to have Gil's input. And I think, I'm not trying to end the meeting, but, we're more or less on the same page. We have a little bit of a range, but I think we could put together a motion in that meeting that I believe we will all, or the majority of us will be able to agree upon. What are your thoughts on going at it that way rather than leaving this with a recommendation? Kelly?
Oh, go ahead, Jeff. I like to hear what you say first.
I'm open either way. And before we're done with this meeting, I'd like to see if Paula had any other thoughts as well. But I'm open either way.
Okay, Kelly?
I think that with just having the evaluation and then having this work session, I think we should be kind of at that place that we could, make some kind of recommendation today. I know it'd be really nice to have Gil on here, but I don't know if it makes sense to hash it out another time, if that makes sense. And my initial was, when I first was coming on here, I'm just gonna throw it out there, but my initial was to hope to give Paula a whole extra 15,000. I thought that extra 15 between all of, increase. And so I think it's somewhere I just want to throw that out because that's what I think she's worth, that much, but I wasn't here for the increase last year. So I want to make that clear. I just think that we have a good enough range that we should be able to come up with something. So that's just me.
Well, I greatly appreciate efficiency, so I don't want to rehash it twice either. So I thank you for saying that. Did you say 15,000 or 15%?
15,000 extra. Yeah, which would, and that's the high end. I know that's high end. So we got the low end, the high end, and then we've got the somewhere in between. So I think that we can come up with a good number with between all of us.
What's the percentage on that, Jeff? I think you just calculated it.
11 or 12%, right?
12,
Right about that.
just under. Or, yeah.
And-
I'd be okay with that.
I would as well. I know we want to be competitive, and we need to be competitive. It's very important. So I support that as well. Paula.
And Jeff mentioned that he wants to hear from me on this, but
Yep.
I just want to say that I realize that, you know, the number in Astoria, it's quite a jump. It would have been quite a jump this time because, as I mentioned last year, when I tried to match them, because the person who was hired was still on, you know, coming out of the interim side, and then I guess my understanding jumped quite a bit. And I don't have that expectation to have this all at once. So I am okay with having that to an extent, getting to that point incrementally, you know, but I don't want to, you know, always be trying to catch up. Because I think even a long term, if you're looking into, say, if I go away and trying to hire a new GM in the future, my understanding last time is the port was having a hard time finding enough people to apply, and I think partially it was because of that. You know, when you don't have a competitive salary, you just probably not gonna, you know, get the folks you want. I was willing to, because I thought it was a nice change of pace for me coming to the coast. Not many people are gonna think that way. And I was willing to give it a try, even starting at where I started. But on the long run, I think you want to keep it at that competitive level. And again, I'm willing to go there in increments, hopefully in the next couple years, 2 years, no longer than that, to get to that level, and hopefully stay there. I mean.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I support that logic and expect great things next year and great things the following. I think we're on a pretty good roll, and hopefully we can all make that happen. Well, should we take that recommendation of 12% increase to the meeting at the end of the month? Kelly's shaking her head. Jeff has his hand up.
Is there, what is today? Today's the
12.
12th. We got about a couple weeks till the meeting.
Yep.
Any reason it would benefit doing it today, or would it not matter whether we do it today or in 2 weeks?
It's just a matter of having something on paper going into that meeting, but I don't think it matters all that much. It's just, we don't want to rehash the whole conversation necessarily, but we definitely want, Gil will obviously have a vote, and we can hear his input at that time.
I do think it's fair to Paula to get the process through, whether it's a little or a lot. I think it, we've gone through a long this back and forth. So anyway, but whatever works for you guys. So I know it's not here.
So we're not making a decision necessarily here. We're just making, a recommendation at this point.
Okay.
But I gladly entertain anything you have to say, Jeff.
I didn't know if there'd be any benefit to going ahead and making the motion and getting that done, just making a motion that we, what the number is and that the contract wording stay the same, whether we just wait a couple weeks. I don't know if it matters, or Paula would have a preference, or
As I said, with the contract, I'm willing to work with you, whichever way. It's just that if we do a long-term contract, as I mentioned before, I guess on the departure clause, I would like to work a bit more of a number on that, just because when you feel like you have an obligation to stay at a place, I think there's a value to that.
yeah.
What are your thoughts about waiting, Jeff? What are the pros and cons there for you?
Well, maybe we wait. If it doesn't matter really, maybe we wait. And I would say, just one thing I wanted to say to Paul is I do wish I had a updated salary comparison and have it be validated. I find nothing. I don't know if there's anything public information on Astoria. And I believe a lot of other ports, you may be able to try to go on the internet and piece together things from years ago, or get something that's old from the state. But I wish we had something that had the salaries and then the revenues and the resources for comparison, so we could really hone in and feel better about setting a number that was fair to everybody. It's really kind of hard to do that now, especially not having Astoria, because there aren't a whole lot of comparable ports. Washington and California, there's some differences, and there's some differences between the coast and the rivers. There's differences between a big cargo port that just didn't just is a complete different apples and oranges. So I wish we had that.
Go ahead, Paula.
As to revenue, assets, and all that, what I've done is I compare looking at their budget versus our budget. So that's how I came up with that balance. Unfortunately, as to salaries, I only have inside information. I don't have, like yourself, I was not able to get anything other than the beginning of last year. I couldn't find anything, but I had discussions with folks in there, and that's what I heard. So if I can find something, I'm sure we'll share. But as to the budget, which they don't disclose salaries, but they do disclose the assets and revenues and things like that. And I didn't look at this year. I don't know if this year is completed yet, but I believe I did look at last year, and we're very, very much of a match between the two ports.
Thanks, Paula. I don't know if changing the contract is what we need to do right now. I think it might take a fair amount of time with Pete or legal in general. It's kind of my opinion on that.
I can make some suggestion, maybe some edits to the contract in consideration to maybe a 3-year or 5-year, and add what I think that should change if we're gonna go that route, and you can look at that for maybe next year, so we have something to start from. And obviously, you're more than welcome to. You also have access to our port attorney, as commissioners, so you can certainly work that out with him and see if that's something you want to consider for next year, or make other suggestions from there.
Yeah, that's along the lines of what I was thinking, maybe revisiting that next year earlier in the process. Well, we kind of went back and forth, recommendation versus no recommendation. Do you feel strongly about waiting, Jeff? If you do, we'll wait.
I could go either way. Hate to be wishy-washy, but
Right. So maybe we write up a recommendation for 12% and bring that to the commission meeting and to vote on.
yeah, I would agree with that. Do we need a motion or just,
I think we just, I'm not sure. I think we just make that a recommendation. Do we need to make a motion? This is a non-voting meeting, right?
You could vote, but you could also just come to a consensus to make a decision at the next meeting.
I'd probably feel more comfortable with that, to consensus to make that vote at the next meeting. So I have 2 out of 3 heads nodding yes. And I know Walter. You're on mute, Walter.
Yeah, bring a recommendation to the next meeting. That's my.
Okay. Well, let's bring that recommendation to the meeting and go for a vote at that time. Is everyone that needs to be shaking their head is shaking their head. Okay, so we accomplished the goal of this work session. So at this time at 12:50, I'd like to end the Port of Newport work session on May 12th.